and beyond. We've got a Texans mailbag here on Texans Today, and if you have no idea why I'm wearing this Texans Today helmet, it's because you weren't here during our live show on October 1st when all these questions were answered from our live audience. If you're here live watching, hashtag Texans or Super Chat to get on the program. All the questions are coming from our loyal subscribers who tuned in to our Texans Today live show. And a reminder, we will be live for Week 5. Texans versus Ravens is going to be kickoff at noon. We will be live 30 minutes before kickoff, so don't miss out. A lot of giveaways. We're giving away a Will Anderson Jr. signed helmet. So if you want to be a part of that, have a chance to win that, make sure to pull up for our watch party for Texans versus Ravens. All right, first question up. Brendan D'Souza, hashtag Texans. Do you think our defense is better this year or not? That's a good question. I think our secondary is playing a little bit worse than it did last year. I think just takeaways. Takeaways is a hard thing year over year to continually be like the top team in terms of interceptions and things of that nature. I think the defense last year, maybe a little bit better, but we're only through 4 weeks. The D-line's still encouraging. The one thing that I think this defense needs to improve on that they did better last year, obviously takeaways, secondary, also defending the run. Up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they allowed more than 5 yards a carry. They kind of fixed things up against the Jags, up against the Titans. Can they continue that trend and be able to stop the football whenever the other team's trying to run it? It's going to be a big test this week whenever they play up against Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. Thank you for your question, Brendan D'Souza. NBC it. Hashtag Texans. Let's be honest, Caserio ain't a good GM. I mean, it's tough. I feel like I've been pretty, in the middle. I praised him when I think he does good, and also I've kind of retroactively kind of shit on Caserio here and there. I can't talk as much because I thought the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade was an absolute steal, the absolute, heist of the offseason. Didn't turn out to be that. The Texans released C.J. Gardner-Johnson, had to pay that contract up front because they reworked his deal. And with that, along with the Cam Robinson, signing / trade away, the Texans don't have a lot of money to work with during the regular season. Now, has he done a good job in kind of turning things around? Sure. The Texans, they were in the dumpster of the AFC. Now, back-to-back AFC South champions, back-to-back playoff wins. He also was able to bring in Denico Autry, who I think was the right man for the job, right guy for the position. It's tough for me. If I'm grading Nick Caserio, which good job on this one, Colin, red pen time, I'm giving him a B-. I think I'm giving Caserio a B- or a solid B. I think he's done a decent job, but nobody's perfect, and I don't think he's on the level maybe yet of some of the top GMs like a Howie Roseman or some of the guys. Like, I think Baltimore has a great GM. I think the Lions, their GM, has done an amazing job. The one thing that really holds Caserio back is some of those moves, and then the fact that he hasn't been able to, draft offensive linemen. Whether that's him, whether, that's him alongside the coaching staff, maybe picking out some of these guys, they haven't really been able to select and kind of, pick out good offensive linemen to get a good, unit in front of C.J. Stroud. That's maybe been his biggest downfall. Let me know down in the comment section, though. Grade Nick Caserio's tenure in Houston so far. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F in the comment section. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. All right, today's show is presented by our friends over at PrizePicks. Get started today with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there. I love it. Producer Cullen loves it. I know you will too. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. PrizePicks, it's super simple. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money today. On PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the flex play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the power play. No matter what your play is, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. And we talk about, the Texans. We talk about Sundays. Let's talk about a little bit of college ball here. Our guys here at Chat Sports, they put this lineup together for this Saturday. Diego Pavia going up against the Crimson Tide. Give me the more on his rushing yards, 19.5. And then Arch Manning. Talk about a roller coaster of a season. That's been Arch with the Longhorns. 217.5 pass yards up against Florida. Looks like we're going the less on that. You can use my picks or go make your own. Just do it over with our friends at PrizePicks today. Download the PrizePicks app. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, next up, thank you, Peacock. Hashtag Texans. How much of an impact for Autry and Reed? Yeah, Denico Autry, Jaylen Reed back in there. And actually, I believe we had the social from it earlier here on the program. Both those guys returned to practice this week and, possibly be on the active roster come Sunday up against the Baltimore Ravens. And the D-line, I think, has been, pretty good this year already. So Denico Autry just adds another body that you can get after the quarterback with, another body to kind of rotate in and out on this defensive line. I think he'll be a welcome addition to the Texans defense. Jaylen Reed, though, even though not as big of a name as Denico Autry, definitely less proven. He's a rookie 6th-round pick out of Penn State. I think he might have a bigger impact, though. This secondary, the depth is not there, and adding a guy like Jaylen Reed, who this coaching staff was really high on during the offseason, during training camp, during, the preseason, maybe that'll be, a sight to help this Texans team, especially in the secondary after they went ahead and released C.J. Gardner-Johnson last week. Good question here. Will the Texans defense be top 5 at the end of this year? Let me know. Give me a yes, give me a no down in the comment section. Do you think this Texans defense can be top 5? I think it has the pieces to. We have the talent to do that. Can we continue to do that? As the time I'm filming this, the Texans have the number 1 defense in terms of, opposition scoring by a pretty decent margin. Can they keep that up? Let me know down in the comment section. Neo, will Higgins have a breakout game in week 5? We saw it from Woody Marks in week 4. We were all begging, the Texans to use more Woody Marks. I believe the video that I made right before the Texans play the Titans, it was a Q&A just like this where I said, please, can we play Woody Marks? And look what we did. Jayden Higgins had 1 catch last week. It was for a touchdown. Can he build off that? Maybe if this O-line can, protect C.J. Stroud a little bit more, if they can, get into a more of a rhythm, then they can use Jayden Higgins on this offense. I'd really like to see him get more opportunities. One of the reasons why he was drafted with the Texans' first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, pick number 34 in the 2nd round, he's short-handed, and he's a big body for C.J. Stroud. Let's get him some more targets, see if he can catch those footballs, and get some separation up against these opposing defensive backs. Thanks for the question, Atlas Matt. Who is the X factor for this team? It's a good question. I would say the X factor for this squad up against the Baltimore Ravens might be a little bit of a sneaky one. Give me Azeez Al-Shire. He is the middle linebacker. He's the guy who, is going to be the leader of this Texans defense going up against the Ravens. They might have Lamar Jackson. They might have Cooper Rush. Depending on who the quarterback is, it doesn't matter because the Texans need to stop this run game with Derrick Henry, and I think that starts with Azeez Al-Shire at the middle linebacker spot. Now, it is to be worth noted the NFL is reviewing his hit from week 4 up against Cam Ward. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN reported it's not likely that he'll be suspended, but probably we'll get a fine for that. We got to keep our eyes out for that one, though. I think Azeez Al-Shire, the guy in the middle, if he's able to, detect those runs, go run sideline to sideline, stop Derrick Henry in the run game, that'll put more pressure on whoever the quarterback is, and then that'll help the secondary as well. If we don't let 5, 6, 7 yards of rush up against this Ravens team and can get them into 3rd and long, then our pass rush can get after the quarterback. Then our secondary can maybe have some more opportunities to take away the football. But if they're continuously in, 3rd and short, 2nd and short situations because they're getting 5, 6 yards a pop, that's going to be bad news for this Texans defense. All right, lights aren't on. Should I start Woody Marks this week in fantasy football? It is maybe the most popular, addition to every fantasy team this offseason. I feel like everybody in fantasy has been like, oh, I'm adding Woody Marks. And if you look at it on the ESPN fantasy app or Sleeper fantasy app, wherever you add, He's easily the most added player in fantasy football this week. Now, you're playing a Ravens defense who hasn't been good this year. So, yes, I would say start Woody Marks. Depending on what your running back situation is, I would go ahead and start Woody Marks, not only because he was electric last week. I don't think he'll be, getting the carries that other guys will be getting, but I do think that he'll be able to catch the ball out of the backfield as well. That's one of the reasons why the Texans drafted him out of USC. He had a lot of receptions out of the backfield for the Trojans in 2024, and we saw that up against the Titans, and even prior to that, he was able to, catch the ball up against the Bucs, get a 35-yard gain there. He's good in the screen game. So Woody Marks, I would 100% start him if you were able to pick him up off the waiver wire this week in fantasy, or if you were just a ball knower and you picked him up a couple weeks ago, you probably already have him in your starting lineup. Next up, Brendan, BRVN Dawn. Houston has a good trade report with Cleveland with Bannon Jr.'s production and Njoku on a contract year. What are your thoughts on a trade for Njoku? His blocking ability alone has upside. I like that. I would be okay with that. I think the Texans need to add a tight end. And I talked about it in one of my shows this week that the Texans don't have a lot of money, so maybe they look to, bargain bin shop. They already, got Jarrett Kingston, a offensive lineman on the Panthers practice squad. They could look to add another tight end from another team. Greg Dulcich is on the, Dolphins practice squad. There's a couple other guys. Albert O is on the Raiders practice squad. Josh Wiley's on the Green Bay Packers practice squad. Those are three guys I could see this Texans team go out and target to add to the tight end spot. They have a couple guys on their own practice squad as well. Luke Lachey, the 7th-round pick out of Iowa. I would be perfectly fine if they were able to trade for Njoku and add another target. Some could argue that that's a big, factor in how this Texans offense has been slow to start the year. Nick Caserio is a tight end guy. He wants to work the tight ends more and more. In the preseason, in training camp, we saw a lot of work with the tight ends. Now, we see 2 of the 3 starting tight ends already out for this team. Cade Stover and Brevin Jordan, they're injured. Harrison Bryant got injured up against the Tennessee Titans, so we'll see whether or not he's good to go this Sunday. But I think the Texans definitely need to add a tight end to this tight end room, and I would rather them add a proven guy and an Njoku rather than go out and bargain bin shop like they have for a lot of their free agents this offseason. Now, reminder, I will be live Week 5, Texans, Ravens. Be there or be square. We'll be live here 30 minutes before kickoff. We're doing a giveaway. We have a ton of fun stuff on tap for you, so don't miss a single moment. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you join us because, hey, I don't wear this helmet often, but when I do, we go crazy here on Texans Today. So don't miss a single moment. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us on Sunday for Texans versus Ravens.